I'm Rene Westbrook, and I'm from New York City, born and bred, educated, New York, New England. In this show, Black Lives Matter is the theme. And part of what I'm interested in this is showing both the incredible level of cruelty that has been visited upon not just people of color, but especially Black people in America. And so one aspect of the work is called Hieroglyphs of Hate, the pictograms. We have seen pictured cruelty and brutality is very visual, and it's been demonstrated to be visual so that you get to really be saturated not just with the results of cruelty, broken bodies, burnt bodies, blood, etc., but the psychic aftermath of such cruelty. It really wears on the body generation after generation. So many Blacks, most Blacks in America, suffer with post-traumatic slave disorder. We call that PTSD as well. And it may be a clever understanding of what we go through, the PTSD, but in actuality, it's a very painful, debilitating, emotional, damaging construct on our psyche. And it plays out over and over and over again with all manner of duplicitous, deceitful, systematic racism. And to hear Mike Pence yesterday say, America is not a racist country, it's a left-wing myth, as if slavery and Jim Crow and the fight for civil rights and just being able to buy a home and have equity just never existed other than by the left. And in 1789, when they first codified the Constitution, slavery was written in, and there was no left-wing mythology that made that happen. That was pure white supremacy in every way. And I'm always struck by the manner in which lies, the constant lying has been perpetrated on America as a whole. I mean, it affects white people as much as Black people, no one gets away. No one gets away, no matter how much privilege and money people think they have because, they happen to be top dog in the moment. You still are scarred by incessant lying. So the way I organize this, my contribution to this show is Black Lives Matter because white lies shatter. So the Black Lives Matter is the artwork that talks about the deliverance, and the white lies shatter is the hieroglyphs of hate. It's the hate that shatters the peace, the tranquility of body, mind, and soul for everyone, but especially for those that it's been perpetrated on. So the tagline is Black Lives Matter, White Lives Shatter. The Black Lives Movement, it's only been repackaged. The civil rights movement, the Jim Crow movement against Jim Crow, this is not a new thing. The Black Lives Matter is not a new thing. Black lives didn't matter during slavery. Black lives didn't matter during Jim Crow. Black lives have never mattered in America. So when you say, how is that movement? It's not a movement, it's a reality. It's been perpetrated upon us year in and year out. Every year we have landed, 1619 in this country, that our Black bodies were not bodies as people. We were not inculcated with the understanding that we were perceived as human beings. We were chattel. We were exploited for the very fact that they didn't have to perceive Black bodies as mattering. So the Black Lives Matter movement, as it is colloquially stated today, really is a misnomer, because it's never ended. It never stopped being an issue. Someone coined the phrase to make it more relevant today, but the Black Power, movement in the 70s was the same as the Civil Rights Movement 20 years before, the same as the fight to end Jim Crow 100 years before then, the same 150 years at the end of the Civil War. Reconstruction fell apart because Black lives didn't matter. Slavery persisted in all those years because Black lives didn't matter. George Floyd was his murder was so casual and so ridiculously perceived to be commonplace that the police officer could do it with his hand in his pocket and stay there, hearing the crowd say, "You're killing him," hearing the man scream for his mother, and nothing made the difference. The reason that was so profound for so many people was that this was commonplace. This was not anything new. Every time we saw someone running with their hands up away and shot in the back or shot in the head or shot just because someone perceived him to be a big bad dude. The reason that Mike Pence would say that there's no systematic racism in this country is because it's so pervasive. When something is ubiquitous, it's just so much there. It's like breathing. You don't even, they say, "Oh, the air, there's air." And you go, "Really?" You're breathing? Well, racism is so commonplace that it's imperceptible. And when he says there's no racism, it's because it's so common that it's not even noticeable. It's ubiquitous. It's like, how is that possible when everything is so pervasive that it's like breathing? So my work has always been to elucidate on these elements without creating the most common stereotypic aspects of it, because you have to, as an artist, you have to bring it to the fore in a way. It's our responsibility as artists to make sure that you don't turn away. I trained as a classical sculptor, figurative work. I trained with 2 Italian sculptors, and I did a lot of figurative training in order to learn the classical form of the figure. So in many ways, I had a very specific training, but I made a living as a painter, and I've done a lot of different forms of art in terms of technique, collage, photography, painting, sculpture, mixed media. So, but themically, my work has always looked at how society impacts the human condition, how society's ills or failings impact Black people in general, people of color. So Black Lives Matter, as I said in my writing, when I did my application, I've spent many, many years at this because, as I just said earlier, it is so persistent that there's no way to get away from it. I mean, since George Floyd's murder a year ago, do you know how many Black people have still been murdered since that point? You know, every time you turn around, you can't get away from it. It's just another one and another one. You go 2 weeks and then yet there's another one. And you say, when is it going to end? And it's not going to end because, you know, frankly, the powers that be won't acknowledge that it even exists, let alone let's honestly look at ways to curtail or to change or to get real with it. 100 years, Tulsa, it was 65 years before they even would talk about it. And Tulsa was not the only city that they burnt down. I mean, when you talk about the cities in Florida, Rosewood and others around the country, the dynamics makes your heart stop, because the wealth of our Black people have been invaded and traded for years. So it's not just our human resource, you know, our minds, body, and spirit. It's, if we have land, they take it. If we have, you know, certain abilities, we're denied. If, you know, it's just endless pursuit of denigrating who and what we are. So when they say Black Lives Matter, they say, well, all lives matter. Yes, it would be nice if all lives matter, because then we at least have a fighting chance in it. So my work has always reflected these constructs, which is why I was very happy to be a part of this when I was selected. It's certainly not the only time that I've had such an honor and an opportunity. I've been more fortunate that way because the work is strong and the work is there. It's readable and it's relatable, and I've never shied away from what's important in the moment.